half of our canine spays interested in
Through
this.
laparoscopically? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was 90% right from day one. So eventually,
Oh, that's
I just
awesome.
stopped doing regular spays. Yeah.
Oh, we're live now. Just to bring everyone into the
Okay.
conversation, Dr. Nigel and I are just chatting about laparoscopic spays because I'm very interested. He is local to me, so I'm interested in yeah, the adoption of the procedure in our communities. But let's rewind a little bit, and I'll send out a welcome to everyone. We're so excited to have you with us today as we explore how technology, efficiency, and a bold vision are shaping the future of independent veterinary practices. So, to introduce you to today's guest officially, and fair warning, you're probably going to feel wildly inspired by him. Dr. Nigel Skinner co founded Shoreview Veterinary, a cutting edge clinic that has become the cornerstone of the Beach and Bluffs community in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. With 20 plus years of experience and a loyal fan club of clients to show for it, Dr. Skinner and his partner Tracy are bringing a fresh approach to veterinary care right in the neighborhood they've called home for over 15 years. Dr. Skinner was the first vet in Toronto to offer laparoscopic spays, yes, the first, and he has trained others in this minimally invasive technique, redefining how surgeries are done. He's also well versed in internal med and soft tissue surgery, all while being known for his no BS approach, compassionate, practical, and laser focused on what really matters. Oh, and when he's not revolutionizing vet med, he is wreck diving, photographing underwater worlds, or writing his quarterly pet column for the Beach Metro newspaper. Basically, he is the coolest. Welcome, Dr. Skinner.
Wow, that was very generous, very kind. Thanks, Heather. No, it's great to be here. I love the topic. It's something that is definitely been top of mind for the last year and a half at least for me, and is I think it's really really relevant and something I really enjoy talking about. So
Well,
yes,
thanks for taking the
thank
time.
you very much for having me.
So I did want to share that earlier this year, some of the Digitail team did get an opportunity to visit Shoreview. Unfortunately, I did not, even being local, because I was actually away at the time, so I wasn't around. But we got some really great pictures of the team during their visit, just illustrating how awesome the clinic is. There's some really cute photos that were shared with us as well from Tracy, just of like day to day life. I love this one. This one's great. This captures like your essence.
It really does. Yeah.
Yeah, and pictures of the whole team, and then yourself and Tracy as well. So I also wanted to just take a minute to share this. Give me a second to update this so you guys can see what I'm seeing. But when I was doing the kind of research for the webinar, putting everything together, I just went on Google and happened to notice that your clinic, Shoreview Veterinary, has 40 five-star Google reviews, which is very impressive. That speaks volumes as to the work that you're doing. You guys must be pretty proud of that.
Yeah, we definitely are. Yeah, so yeah, it means a lot to us, obviously, to get that kind of feedback. We've been open for just 6 months now, so this is exactly what we were hoping for. The kind of impression we were hoping to make in the community. So yeah, we respond to every single review and actually my wife Tracy does, and it's all definitely from the heart. So
That's awesome. Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. But you can see, like I said in the intro, you have a fan club of clients. That's not BS. I'm not making that up. It's legit.
well, thank you.
Okay, well, let's rewind things. We'll back up and kind of get started back at the beginning when you had decided to open Shoreview. Now, I believe you had mentioned that starting a new practice wasn't initially in your plans for 2024. So, what ultimately drove you to take the leap and build a new clinic?
So back up even further. I owned another practice in sort of the same area. It's not terribly far geographically from where we are now. That I bought in 2007 and sold in 2019. And when I sold that practice, yeah, you're right. I did not think necessarily. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I sort of kept that sort of pretty wide open. I had some ideas about the opportunities that I felt were available, but a few things. So I ended up having about a year of just plain break, not working at all, which was great. But it certainly showed me that um, I need to work. I need to be in this industry. I that it really reinforced in me, and this I needed this, that doing what we do is my purpose, and I needed that purpose. Um, so after I sold my practice. I stayed on there for a couple of years. I took a year off, and then I spent another 18 months or so just locuming, experiencing what it was like to be an associate again, which I hadn't done in a really long time. Uh, and just between seeing the changes that were happening in the industry as a whole, getting that different perspective as an associate in another practice, just taking a bit of a step back, I felt that you know we we could really do something quite different in many ways that would hopefully address what I had begun to feel were some of the really problematic areas in the profession, and build something that would match what my vision was, not just for a veterinary practice, but for how I wanted to feel when I was in one, and how I wanted the people around me to feel about what we did. And yeah, just the timing felt right for this, and I couldn't think of anything I would rather do. So yeah, that's a very brief sort of version of the motivation. Um, and I had the luxury of being able to take some time and really go back to basics and think about, okay, what do I see as what are the things that bother me? What do I see as the solutions? In talking to people, what do I feel they want, both clients and staff, especially the team members, and how can we change things up to move some of the things that I felt needed to be at the forefront up to the forefront.
Mm-hmm. And I think that like this holistic view that you had as well, it was important to you to open an independent practice so that you could have full control of all of these elements, right?
Yeah, I mean, it, control. It's just being. I really feel strongly that, for me anyway, that the kind of my vision of a successful practice requires really invested leadership in the clinic, paying really close attention. You know, in the sort of the whole thought process, I came to the way I've described it is, on the foundation of a really solid team, I feel for me to call a clinic successful or a practice that I'm in successful, there are three pillars, and you have to pay attention to all three. Um, Patient outcomes, the client experience, and profitability. Obviously, without profitability, it all falls apart. You can't do what you do. Um, but and that, as I say, is on the foundation of a strong team. And I don't see how you can be paying close enough attention to all three of those things without physically being in the practice. So that to me that's where the advantage to independent practice really lies, I
Mm-hmm.
feel.
Okay. Now, since you've sold your previous practice, how do you think that that experience really shaped your approach to this new clinic?
Um, when I sold my practice at a time when a lot of practices were being sold, and I felt then that there were a lot of factors that went into that decision. It wasn't one I took lightly, but I felt there were challenges the profession was facing. The consolidation of clinics and that economies of scale and the additional sort of behind the scenes support that was sort of seemed to be promised to come with that, to me it presented like, okay, this could be a really viable solution to the challenges. I don't felt that materialized. So sorry, the question again, just rephrase the question one more time. So I want to make sure I answer it.
So your
Was,
experience in your old practice and selling your practice and kind of how things were in the industry at that time, how do you
yeah,
find that changed your approach or shaped your approach
yeah.
to studio?
Thank you. So, between identifying what I felt were the problems, seeing what I thought might be one viable solution not quite go the way I expected it to. And then, as I said earlier, just sort of being able to take a bit of a back seat and be an associate. Um, I've always known the importance of the team in providing veterinary care, but the one thing that I sort of promised I would do right from the start was put that at the very, very forefront of what we did. Was, rather than sort of think, okay, what's missing here that we need to do to attract and keep clients. It was what's missing here that we need to do to attract and keep staff. Because if you can solve that part of the puzzle, then hopefully and it's early days, but my hope is that'll be the solution. Other things, the other things should, if you're paying really close attention to that, should fall into place. So a lot of what I did in the early planning phases were entirely focused on what parts of my job as a vet drive me a bit crazy. What parts do I feel um, take me away from doing what I love and what I feel I do best, and then extending that out to everyone in the group and sort of saying, okay, what about this part of the practice? What are those things for them, and how do we all sort of bring that together and create a very team centric clinic that looks after its staff first and foremost.
So I guess this is where really kind of the focus on embracing technology in order to be able to support exactly that, which is, streamlining all of that stuff that nobody really wants to do, all the paperwork stuff, or the things that take a lot of additional time away from what you're actually wanting to do, which is
Yeah,
more the client interactions and the medicine and that kind of thing.
yeah, exactly. And like I said, the team's the foundation, the two pillars that you're still wanting to pay a lot of attention to. You will not be successful, in my opinion, without the client experience and patient outcomes,
Yeah.
right? So the sort of challenge, I guess, was okay. If I look at the things we need to do to attract and keep the best staff, which were chronic underutilization of skills, especially for RVTs, I thought was probably the number one biggest challenge the profession had faced for years, for decades even. Way predates the apparent vet shortage. In fact, I think it might be the apparent vet shortage is this long-standing, unaddressed RVT shortage that's just created a downward spiral from underutilization of that group's really, really significant skill set. Um, so how do you and so there were those issues, there were the obvious, everyone, we've been talking a long time about work-life balance and what that means, and whatever it means, clearly we've been missing it for a long time, and you know compensation is another area that was needed some catching up to do when you compare 2018 to 2019, 2018 to now. So how do you address all of those things from a team perspective, um, and not and at the same time address the stuff that you need to do from the client and pet perspective, which is maintaining a really, really high level of patient care and optimizing your patient outcomes, and not letting the client and still providing an exceptional client experience. Um, all in the face of now add to that a time where because of some of the struggles across the industry, accessibility, getting your pet seen in a timely fashion, that's become really challenging for a lot of pet owners. And during a time economically where everybody just has less discretionary, less spare money, right? Less, they're having to make their incomes go further. So try the challenge was taking things that almost seem to, you've got to pick one and focus on that, and like, okay, how do we do both? How do we create a clinic that is going to be address the team issues, still provide exceptionally high level of patient care and optimizing patient outcomes while maintaining accessibility and affordability and value? And that's, the big answer to the one word that would sum all of that up would be efficiency, right? Like looking at every step of what we've done, historically through the way a practice is run, and so saying, okay, how can we do this just as well, if not better, but quicker and more thoroughly, and without increasing the cost to a point that it becomes prohibitive or the value is really difficult to see. So, efficiency is the key word. And right now, technology, there's lots you can do to become more efficient. And, we thought about those in the design and layout of the practice. But it's been the technology that's really been a game changer. Um, so I identified those problems and realized I needed to find those solutions before I even really knew a lot about the technology. Now that we've been up and running for 6 months, there are things I hadn't even dreamed of that are an integral part of our practice every day, and I don't know how we would be on the track we're on without them. And I know we're going to touch on a lot of those coming up. So
Yes,
this is
definitely.
what I'm really excited about these days.
Yes, too. I
Yeah.
think before we kind of dive into like specific technologies and kind of how they support your practice, the one thing I did want to touch on that we were talking about before is that specifically the client experience. I think you made some equations to like the Michelin star restaurant, or a boutique hotel versus like a McDonald's or like a Best Western, that have kind of similar goals, but uh, having I can let you take this one if you're. I feel like I'm paraphrasing for you.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I think in the discussion we were having, you were sort of talking. That was again coming back a little bit to the independent versus the
Mhm.
private equity backed sort of corporate side of things. And there's, from a business perspective, I think there's more than one way to be successful, right? Depending on your definition of success. And as I said earlier, my definition of success personally, and the one I want the people surrounding me to have, is all three of those pillars. You can. One of the advantages, I'm going to jump around a little bit. One of the advantages I feel personally to being an independent practice owner is that I don't I don't have to worry about how I'm going to scale this beyond this location. And I don't know if that is going to make sense to everybody, but to me, just thinking about, okay, I'm here, this is my project, this is what I'm paying attention to. How am I going to scale this so it grows to meet the needs of this community and myself and my team, without having to think, well, how am I going to reproduce this at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 other locations? Because I think when you do that, that's when you start to inevitably have to shift from, what I was getting at in our communication earlier with the sort of Michelin star boutique hotel type approach, is that's what you have your one primary focus that you're paying true attention to. And as I say, not that there's anything wrong with those other models, it's just not what I wanted for this clinic.
I think clarity of vision is very important when you are trying to do something like any
Yeah,
large project,
yeah,
really,
yeah,
but especially
yeah.
something like this. Yeah, I think that also can speak to the fact that you knew that you wanted to prioritize efficiency, um, and then looking to how technology could play a role in that. What can you kind of describe your journey in learning about the different technologies that can support, and maybe the pain points? Did you identify the pain points first and then kind of explore technology, or did you just kind of jump into exploring everything that was out there and then seeing how you could implement?
Definitely number two. That's just my kind of style. Yeah, I tend to discover pain points rather than explore them to start with. So yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So I started off by sort of identifying, I guess, the parts of what I was doing on a day to day basis that I thought, you know, and there was a ton of overlap here that were not a great use of my time and didn't bring me a lot of satisfaction, you know. And then I looked around again. I'm going to sort of focus this a lot on the RVTs because that is where a ton of my focus has been, you know, in those associate positions that I talked about, and even in my own practice when I wasn't the owner anymore. um, I would look at the teams of RVTs, and these are really skilled, talented people who have a really unique uh, set of talents to bring. And the amount of time you're sitting in front of a computer and either doing, you know, notes, records, repetitive client communication, client education tasks, I just felt this is where I've got to focus. We need to. These things are super important and they have to be done, but there's got to be a better way than taking somebody who has, you know, this skill set and sitting them down in front of a computer or on the phone for hours out of their day. Um, when, you know, when they're not sort of hands on with pets and patients, or doing or engaged, you know, in conversations about patient care for you know, a hospitalized pet. Um, you know, when the RVTs are distracted with those kinds of tasks, then the doctors are drawing their own blood and cutting their own nails, and it's just this downward
Nobody wants
spiral,
that.
right? It's this downward spiral. So for me, it was, you know, how can we sort of take those tasks, do them just as well, if not better, and and free up that time for these professionals to do what they do best and what brings them the most satisfaction, you know. So I started off with just thinking, oh yeah, client education and communication, and then honestly, AI just appeared, and you know, Digitail. After I did a lot of research into, you know, this is one of the exciting things about opening a new practice, right? As you get to think about every little thing, you know, what am I going to choose for my phone system? What am I going to choose for my practice management, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, I just basically wrote it all out in terms of what my wish list was for things if I could dream it up, and then what was actually available, and then how out of all of these different solutions am I going to put together something that checks as many boxes as possible. Um, and I know you're not paying me, but as a plug, Digitail stood out as being the one that checked the most boxes in an integrated system, and that's why I went with you. You know, we have other technologies as well that we're utilizing, that sort of fit with that overall theme, that have made a huge difference. But yeah, I didn't really anticipate like that I would be leaning so heavily into technology. It's been an amazing, very educational journey. It's kind of, my mind is a little blown every week with how much things change and improve. It's the rate at which this is evolving is really phenomenal. I'm really grateful to be doing this now, you know, with a new project starting while the technology is relatively new, so that everything can sort of grow together. Um, you know, it's certainly not always perfect, and there's lots of times you have to, you know, uh, go back to the drawing board a little bit with some things, and be willing to adapt and change. But it's super exciting. It's really interesting, and it's proven to be really, really valuable for us in terms of achieving all those goals with this team and the staff that I was hoping for, and really adding to the client experience. This is a part that I hoped for. But when you can do something with less effort and less time consumed and produce a product that is really thorough and really consistent, and then see that feedback from the clients, like, oh wow, this is better than anything they'd seen before. In terms of certain reports and communications we're giving, it's been a fantastic. It's been amazing.
I think one of the other
With
things,
lots of room to grow. Lots of
exactly, that's what I was going to say.
it just keeps getting better and better and better. And so yeah, the future is super exciting.
And I think it's nice too because so I come from a long time of server based softwares, and the things that you were just describing about like the pain points and like the client experience and sitting in front of a computer for hours on end, creating these client education documents or communications or just record writing or even just getting up to speed on a patient before you walk in the exam room, all of these different things. The fact that now we have technologies like Digitail that can kind of do all of this stuff, and as you said, it's new, and the rate at which this technology is changing and improving, I think, is also really, really impressive. And the fact that Digitail looks to clients like you guys for feedback, because we want to make sure that exactly what your pain points are being addressed. Whereas I can remember, I won't name any names, but previous softwares that I had been using where they would come out with an update once every 6 months. There would be no feedback. There would be no questions. You would just get a pop up and it would be like, here, go to the lesson thing so you can learn how to use the update. And I'd always click the do not update now because it was always a headache to try to learn how to do new workflows or find the buttons where they move them. It was never a positive thing. It was never seen as a positive thing when working with those old softwares. But now I say it all the time. I'm really jealous of the people who get to utilize Digitail for those reasons. And then, as you said, the AI component, that aspect has really just kind of come out in the last year. It's just exploded. And with Digitail having the first built-in AI, I think that there's a lot of benefit to that. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how, like just general technology, and then also, Digitail's AI Tails has helped to streamline the clinic daily tasks and what impact it's had on your team specifically?
Yeah, yeah, that's a huge question. I could probably talk for the whole rest of the time just answering that. Yeah, so I'd say there's the key sort of technology elements that we've introduced. One would be Digitail, obviously, with Tails and Quick Soap, Tails AI and Quick Soap. AI radiology reviews, AI cytology reviews, and another organization we use for our phone system. And of those, the radiology, the cytology, the phone system, those are all pretty much just set up, and now they've just become part of our workflow. Digitail is the one that's really, really evolving. But little things, like the phone system, where you haven't. We have staff in the clinic that answer phones. We don't have a situation where staff are off site answering our phones, but I'm in what we call our quiet room right now, which is a room I just created in the clinic where you could sit and just not be interrupted for things like this, making calls, doing notes. It's turned out that we use it a lot for just having a good space to do transcription. But the phone hasn't rung in here. And it only rings in the back if there's an emergency based on phone tree selections. But the one feature I love about this most, and our clients love it, food and medication refills is a selectable option. The voicemail is converted to an email, and it's sent. We have one centralized email, so we just have one of the vet assistants in the back who will update our order or medication refill requests based on what's showing up in this email. So simple things like that save such a tremendous amount of time and greatly improve accuracy, right? Because we have a hard copy record of exactly what was asked for by whom at what time. The one thing you alluded to, as a new practice, every single patient we see pretty much has some medical history from somewhere else. And I really had no I don't quite know how I'd be managing that sometimes without obviously you've got to be careful. You've got to review the results, but I've been really impressed with the history summary reviews. Sometimes you just got to quickly type in, summarize this patient's file, detail each visit. Sometimes it's and even simple things like give me the weight history of this patient, and it tells you every weight that's been recorded since the pit was born in 10 years ago. Things like that, just to be able to pull that information up immediately is phenomenal. Obviously I'm using, we've set up each room with good enough quality microphones to capture the transcription and write our records. Again, make it super clear that that all this stuff needs to be reviewed. We're not replacing anyone or relying on it to the extent that it doesn't need to be looked at. But I'm part of my whole principle of how do we create work-life balance for our teams was I wanted everyone to get a lunch break and I want everyone out of here on time. And this has been a huge contributor to our ability to achieve that. As I say, we're still new, but we've had a couple of days already where we are fully booked. We don't turn anything away. If your pet needs to be seen today, we will find a way to see you. I had a day just a couple of weeks ago where every single appointment slot was taken. We had 2 walk-ins, and I texted the top team afterwards, and I said, that was exactly the kind of day that we've been preparing for. You guys did an amazing job. I was the last to leave the clinic at 5:06. So
Wow.
we're Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and I know that a lot of people will say that's going to be really challenging. I can speak to that if you like later, but anyway, to me, that given where we are and uh, some other pieces of the puzzle we've tried to put together to make sure our clients are really well supported outside of our hours. I have really good reason for thinking this is the best way we can be of maximum service and to our patients by all being there and all focused during those hours. And it certainly is very important for helping maintain that work-life balance for your team. It's a game changer for sure. So I don't know, I might have gone a little off track there.
That's okay. I can appreciate that. I think that I mean somewhat in the vein of what you were saying. Some people may say that yeah, Monday to Friday practice 9 to 5. It's not going to meet everyone's needs, but I think I completely understand because as someone who's worked in vet med for 20 years, I never had weekends off, like ever. It was always you were always working on weekends or being pulled in for something or having to do treatments to go into the clinic, even if it was closed, still going into the treatment to do treatments. And there are other facilities that are open, different hours that can accommodate different schedules. And I think that not getting bogged down with trying to meet the needs of absolutely everyone and really like being laser focused on what is going to make the biggest difference for your team and
Yeah.
the quality of care that you're practicing too. Because whenever I hear anything about team culture or making like work-life balance, all I see is happy staff equal happy clients. Like that's it. I foster for a local rescue as well, and I've been in and out of different clinics over the last month, and you can just tell. You walk into the clinic, and again, I'm not naming any names. You can just tell that they're overworked, that they are exasperated. The way that they answer the phone, the way that they're discharging clients, you're just like, oh, I feel bad for you, right? Like it bleeds into everything. It really does.
100%, 100%. If you go back to the reviews that you were talking about right at the start, those are my favorite reviews, and we've got this. It comes up in quite a few of them. How everyone seemed so engaged, and I know this to be true because that's the kind of people we've been able to attract, and that we're all surrounded here by the kind of people we want to be surrounded with. There's just a you know there's a level of expertise, experience, and skill and mindset in this profession, and those people only want to work with each other. The key focus for me is attracting those kinds of people and keeping them here. We're really fortunate in that we're in a very urban center. There's at least six 24-hour emergency and referral clinics in our area. With the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area. You probably couldn't do Monday to Friday 9 to 5 in a more rural setting, right? That just wouldn't make sense. And I think out of the pandemic came a clear shift in work from home and shortened work weeks. And, whether all of that's, people still talk about it, well, is that going to go back to the way it was? Is it going to stick? There might be a bit of fluctuating for the time being, but I think eventually we are definitely going to move. There's just no doubt in my mind that the net movement is going to be towards more work from home and shortened work weeks, which lends itself really well to a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 practice. But mainly for me, it's when I've worked as an associate, especially in multi-vet practices, you've got the most experienced team members who have been there the longest, who quite rightly, they won't and don't need to anymore work evenings or weekends. So they're gone. And you're left with this skeleton crew after hours, or like I should say after hours, but in that sort of 5 to 7, 5 to 8 or Saturdays. And you're not doing your most efficient work that way. And you're turning a lot of things away anyway. You're better off, in my opinion, offering clear alternatives right from the start and saying, we've got a full team here during this period. If you need us, like I said, if you need us, we will be here. If we're here enough to pick up the phone, we're here enough to see your pet. That's sort of one of our philosophies. And you're only going to achieve that if you've got a really cohesive team without the sort of mixed crossing over schedules and everybody's hours changing, and it fixes a lot of problems. It fixed a lot of problems for us. So we're 6 months in. It could be a massive fail. I'm not lying. We could realize this is.
Oh, come on! You can't chase it.
No, but you know what? I so far so good, and I do genuinely believe in that. But I will the preface it by saying, we're fortunate with our location, but we've established a really good relationship with a 24-hour virtual medicine virtual consult service called Smart Vet. It was started by one of my classmates, and that's proven really, really great. Like, our clients really, really appreciate it. And the handful of cases that have had to go there have been really impressed. So,
I think having these goals and this clear direction it's obviously a positive thing. And I would be a big fan. And you've clearly attracted top talent to working at your practice, which has then affected your client experience, which is exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, we can see that through the Google reviews. But there's no way that you would be able to have a completely jammed schedule, plus be able to accommodate, walk-ins or emergencies if you weren't running at top efficiency. Like, there's absolutely no way that would be possible in any world. So I think from my perspective, I feel like you've kind of hit every point on the head, right? You want to have clear direction. You want to have the pillars, your main goals very clearly defined. You want to be optimizing the skill level of all of your staff and trying to accommodate, work-life balance, as well as really keeping that client experience at the forefront. So one question that we had talked about before, is there a specific memorable moment where Digitail's AI has positively impacted a client interaction, either through a specific communication that you had or through support in another way?
Yeah, I mean, every day there's lots of little examples. I mean, it's just like I said, it's just streamlined our workflow tremendously, and it's just been really fun to sort of watch it evolve. But yeah, a couple of really specific, impactful ones I saw, and this we were only open a month or so at this point, but I saw a pit. I'm trying to remember what I think it was an allergy, a food, a young dog with a suspected food allergy situation. So one of those kinds of visits where there's a lot to explain. There's a lot of communication involved, and the pit was brought in by its owner and who only spoke Spanish, and her daughter, who was during the consult was doing all the translation for me, and back and forth. And at the end of it, I as I've sort of taken to now, I used Tails to generate like a really comprehensive, describe, create a pet specific discharge describing food allergies and our recommendations, and it gives us very comprehensive report. And then right as I'm about to send it off, I realized, oh my goodness, I can have it convert this into Spanish, which I did, and handed it to the owner after having gone through this whole appointment of us back and forth. And literally, this is as she's cashing out. It took me about 4 minutes to do this, and it's 2 pages typed in Spanish describing our whole visit, everything that I recommend, giving some sort of a good client friendly summary of what food allergies are, what a diet trial looks like. And she was overwhelmed, right? Which was that kind of thing. That's just, to be able to offer that level of service and client interaction with, with, I'm going to say, minimal effort on my part,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The English version was bang on. I have to assume the translation was. So it looked right as best I could tell.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of some other ones as well. Oh, another really good one would be, and this has happened a couple of times now, where I've had pet owners call in with toxicity concerns, and being able to produce, again, just through a couple of quick prompts, a pet specific. This is what your pet's eaten. This is how many milligrams of theobromine are in a gram of that product. This is your pet's weight. This is where they're at in the sort of toxicity scheme. We've talked about this on the phone, but these are the recommendations. And say, okay, you know what? I've just generated a full report for you. I'm going to send it to your email right now. Take a look at it. It kind of goes over everything we've said. In one of those cases, it was, again, not to stay on the Spanish thing, but it was a medication I'd never heard of. The owner, actually, this is one that came in. They just had a piece of the package, and it was a drug that they had purchased over the counter in Mexico that their dog had eaten. I'd never heard of it. Tails gave me what I felt was a really, really good breakdown of this drug, but it was a little vague in that, the actual toxic dose, it said, of this product is not defined. You're 50% over the therapeutic dose. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to call the ASPCA poison hotline. And I was on hold with about 40 minutes before they came back with literally exactly the same information. I'm not saying it replaces it, but for the chocolate toxicity one, to be able to send them this email, and now, it's not just the vet tapping away on his calculator and putting them on hold and coming back. We do all that. We have the conversation, but here is now a summary of what we just said. It's just, I think that, again, that just strengthens the bond and makes it really clear that, we're really paying attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have
But does
loved.
it in a way that's just like that, right? It's super, super easy and quick.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, back to when I worked at Emerge quite a while ago, and I don't know if anybody else remembers the like National Geographic chocolate toxicity calculator that was on online.
No, the National Geographic? No, no.
Yes, yes, yeah. It was like as a working front desk, it was my first go to
Right.
to get a gauge, especially if the DVM was in an appointment and I needed to leave the person on hold, just to get an idea of, am I telling this person to get in the car now, or am I going to put them on hold and get an answer from
Sure.
them?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I would have really liked that. Now, one question, for the medication that the person brought in, what did you use to put in? Did you use Tails Vision? Because I would totally have just taken a picture and you tried to use
I
Tails
did
Vision.
not. No, I did not. I typed it in. Yeah, I typed it in.
Next time,
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I
And it
love Tails
translated it,
Vision.
and yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, especially working at the local animal shelter, and we would get in owner surrenders, and they would come with 20+ page records, and I would sit there and have to go through and decipher and try to enter all the pertinent data, any vaccines, any weights, any like medical notes, anything like that. Whereas I love that, number one, either Tails Vision, you can just take a picture and upload it that way, or you can just import the PDF of the records and then ask for an itemized summary, and it
Yeah.
happens like really quick. Again, you always want to double check anything that AI is doing at all. But I've been really impressed. I think I shared on a last webinar that in my desk right below me here, I have all of my animals' previous records in like duotangs that are all printed out, and I have really old records from like 20 years ago that are handwritten by a vet that I worked with, whose handwriting, shocker, not the most legible. And I did test Tails Vision when we were first developing it, and it was so accurate. I was like, I am so jealous that this exists now. It's really exciting, the way that the technology is developing, and I think that like you said, the translational aspect is huge. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're talking about access to care, right? It's not only financial, right? It's also meeting the clients where they are, speaking their language, and think that you could have printed out the information sheet on allergies in English, handed it to the daughter. The daughter could have like paraphrased or tried to translate in the best of her ability,
Of
but
course. Yeah.
giving her that document in Spanish probably was way more impactful, especially when you're talking about allergies, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, and you could just see, like I say, it was just her face lit up because, yeah, it was just that
Yeah.
extra level.
Yeah, and I love that it took you 4 minutes.
Yeah.
We do have
Exactly.
a couple of questions.
Sure.
So the first question is: have you explored other AI tools outside of Digitail that seamlessly integrate with Digitail?
Um, I definitely so the two other AI tools that we use, I sort of said earlier, would be reviewing all our radiographs and cytology. Um, in terms of their seamless integration, uh, I mean they're part of our workflow, right? So there isn't the there's the ability to import their reports and attach them into Digitail, and then that would become part of any summary you generated later on. So there's that integration. But the AI radiology review, again, we're going to keep sort of talking about this, especially with it being in its infancy. It's not replacing anyone looking at X-rays, but I've already had a tremendous, it's been really impactful to have that second set of eyes at Q Beach before I sold. So I shouldn't have even said the name, but at the clinic I used to own before I sold it, part of our X-ray package included a board certified radiologist review.
Yeah.
And this was back 2018, 2019. The cost, we would pass that. I just added that to what we did, and in terms of the client bore just the cost of that. Right, that was my decision. I'm like, okay, this is a good second set of eyes for us, so I'm gonna just increase the cost by what it costs us because really it's a win-win across the board. That was my own personal decision. But in the 5 years since then, that radiologist review has gotten extraordinarily expensive. You could no longer really do this anymore. So I didn't want to give it up entirely. I really see value in getting some other eyes on your X-rays, beyond just the vets that are in the clinic. So we've used since day one Signal Pet to review all our X-rays. They just go straight there. Dental X-rays as well, and I've certainly had a couple of examples of that being really helpful. A GI foreign body that I probably would have sent for an ultrasound, but that wasn't going to be, wasn't going to be in this patient's best interest. That delay, and just having that not just for me to look at, but I was able to provide to the client. It's like without they didn't have to leave their home. It's like I'm going to send you this report right now, and you can see it's got the image. It's got a circle around where it thinks the foreign body is. If you look, it's like it's reporting a 4 out of 4 confidence. I would say the same thing. You can't see a foreign body, but boy, is it ever suspicious, and it fits with the signs, and so that would be one. Dental's huge. I've loved the AI radiology review of dental radiographs. It's so much easier to send a client a set of images in an email with a report and circles around every single lesion when you're talking to them about why you need to extract teeth. It's the
Mm,
same, we're reaching the same endpoints, the same outcome, the same recommendations are being made,
yeah.
but it's very different to have a conversation I've found with a client saying, we've finished the x-rays, here are these 6 teeth that need to come out, and people think, oh my goodness, 6 teeth, that's crazy. But to send them images and talk to them on the phone or via chat or text, explaining what's being reported there. That's been huge. AI cytology as well. We do all our ear cytologies. So when I see a patient now that comes in and it's head shaking and scratching its ear before I even walk into the room, so we've got a real system of team-based medicine where a vet assistant goes in and gets the history, starts quick soak for me, gets all the history out of the way. That's already being listened to and
Yeah, while
transcribed
they're
into the
going
record,
through.
so I can see it as it's happening in the back, whatever I'm else in the middle of. Um, but and then I go in and do my thing, and then I hand it over to the vet assistant and RVT. We work in teams of 3 like that, for whatever treatment needs to be done, or post visit explanation, client education material, medication fills, whatever. But with ears now, by the time the vet assistant comes back to tell me they've just come out of the room with so and so who's been scratching at their ears, they're already running the cytology through our Imagist scanner. So I go in and do my thing and do an exam. The pet comes out for an ear cleaning, saying this is just kind of a typical thing. And then I can go in with a report with images that says, well, here you can see there's your dog's ears are full of yeast. These little
Yeah.
snowmen, you see hundreds of them in this picture. This is why we need to go on. This is, we talk about allergies or whatever else needs to be discussed, and they go home with their medication. But I have yet to not have one come back for a follow up
Oh wow.
because
They
they
see it.
want to see. They see
Yeah.
it, right? And then to be able to bring them the next report or email them the next report and say, all the snowmen are gone. We're good, right? Work jobs, and they can see it themselves, and they can see the little, the actual organism count. So again, it's not only streamlining what we do, and giving us that added layer of thoroughness and accuracy to what we do, but it's really adding to the client experience without increasing our workload at all.
hmm
You
Would
know,
you have you received any other feedback? I mean, from clients specifically about using AI in your practice? Do you have the conversation about how the records are being recorded? I mean, other than of course that the Spanish speaking client's response to the discharge
sure.
instructions. Are there other instances like that?
Um, So we have a client contract. So in terms of, I just want to address the one part about, are you telling, you asked, are you telling clients are being
Recording.
recorded? So we have a client contract, which covers a few things. And this was
Okay.
also part of our initial process when we sort of
I
went
love
open
that.
practice. Yeah. Yeah. So it just covers off a few things that we're like, you know what, this is what we're going to do for you.
Yeah.
This is
This
what
is
we promise you. This is this, and here's just a couple of simple things we expect to in
yeah.
return. Simple things like please don't argue about keeping your pets. We word it differently. about
Yeah.
keeping your pet's rabies vaccine up to date, right?
Yeah, don't
It,
yell at the front counter staff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like, just this is just it's if you agree to this contract, you agree that that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep your if nothing else, we're going to keep your pet's rabies vaccine up to date. Um, Cats need to be in carriers, dogs need to be in leashes. We've said it once now. It's You've signed it. It's a done deal, right?
Mhm.
But in that contract, we talk about the use of AI in the exam room. I like to just, if I'm ever asked to explain it, it's just, if this is listening in while we do the visit, it's going to transcribe what you say and convert it into a summary for me. I really make sure they understand it's for their benefit. I've had one client ask me not to use AI during an appointment so far. So, which is fair enough. That's fine.
Mhm. But that's not a lot. One out of
No, no,
X amount of
no.
clients. And do you think that you get a better response, just like with the yeast snowmen, where the client can see, so that you have a better compliance rate for checkups? Do you think that the clients are more invested in their care because you're in the exam with them? You're not kind of typing notes while you're with them. You're not multitasking.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Personally, I never did that anyway. I would
Okay.
never. I just That was never my style to sit and type notes. I would try and remember everything,
Oh, okay. You wouldn't do
and
notes
then
at all. You would do
and
the
then play
exam
catch up later. So
and
it's
then
been. I mean, so from that standpoint, the client experience in the room hasn't changed a lot. To be
fair.
honest with you, my experience outside the room and afterwards has changed the most, because there are definitely things that I probably wouldn't have remembered,
Yeah,
that
it's happening.
little details.
Yeah,
What diet did they say they were on? Well, now
yeah.
I know for sure. Little details like that I'm not, that I
Mhm.
just have that extra help recalling, which has
And
proven to be
time
great. But
all
yeah,
the
I don't think
time.
just because of the way I practice personal choices, right? The
Mhm.
client experience in the room hasn't changed a whole lot, other than, with the thing that's changed that more is just how, um, much emphasis we've placed on, uh, when you come to the vet here, you're not just seeing the vet. It's really clear to you that there's a team of people
It's a
on this,
team. That's right.
and I think that's really important. So
Definitely. And I mean,
that part of the experience has changed
not
for
to
me.
discount your experience being different after, without having to write all of the records afterwards, because I've worked with vets that do both. I'm a big fan of exactly your methodology, really, which is being in the moment, being in the exam with them, having that conversation, but then as the person who would then have to stay late waiting for the vet to write all of his records from the afternoon, I can appreciate
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do not love that. Do
no.
not love that. Don't love it for myself. Don't love it for anyone else. I think that's one of the things that I think is if we can eliminate staying after the clinic is closed to get caught up, if we can eliminate that as much as possible, if not entirely, that's a huge step towards this elusive work-life balance.
Yeah, because I mean, like, let's be real. The working in vet med, it's not going to become any less stressful. It's not going to become any less emotionally taxing. Like, all of these other aspects of working in vet med are not going to change, right? I mean, you're still going to have to manage clients that may not be able to facilitate payment for a needed procedure. All of these things are still going to happen, but I think that is the thing that we can change, is freeing up time, being able to take all of these admin tasks
Yeah,
and streamline them in order to give some balance back, right? In order to be able to give the time to process the things that are happening on a day-to-day basis, because it does.
yeah, yeah.
Um, if you could go back to the beginning, is there anything that you would do differently regarding using technology or AI for efficiency?
Honestly, I'm going to say no. I don't think so. I really don't think so. Only because, um, it's it's also really in its infancy, just like my practice is. So the thought of doing something differently is kind of hard to. It's hard to say I would. and this is not by any means saying, oh, we've done everything perfectly. That's not what I mean at all. It's just we sort of adopted it when it was early, and it's growing with us. So I think, there wasn't anything different to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense? You know what
It
I mean? You
does.
sort of, if you were going to take it on, you had to take it on the way it was,
Mhm.
and then just be willing to sort of
To
acknowledge
grow.
that this is a growing area. So for me, it's really interesting and exciting because like you were talking about the updates coming to your practice management software every 6 months. I feel like so many of the things I'm utilizing this technology for, I'll come in one day and it seems better than it was yesterday,
Mhm. Yeah,
which is just crazy to me.
yeah. Oh my gosh, we're at an hour already. Holy smokes.
Okay.
That flew by really, really fast.
Yeah, that really did.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Skinner, for sitting down with me today. I think that your story will benefit a lot of other people. Just learning from colleagues and how you navigated this whole journey with Shoreview, and continue to get your 5-star Google reviews. And I'm gonna have to actually physically come visit you since I'm really
I
not
would
that.
love that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you really very much. It was a real pleasure. As a parent, I could talk about this forever. And if there are questions that come out of this that we can follow up on, I'm more than happy to do that.
Amazing.
I would love that. And yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Bye.
All right, take care.